Hi everyone, breathe the knee deep. Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new self-titled Bleachers album. Here we have the newest full-length LP from Bleachers, the East Coast rock and pop band project masterminded by multi-instrumentalist, songwriter, singer, super producer, Mr. Jack Antonoff. A man whose reputation behind the mixing board is pretty much growing larger than his presence as a band leader or solo artist these days. And it's hard not to see why, considering that Jack has had a hand in some of the biggest and most recent artistic successes of the 1975, Lana Del Rey, Taylor Swift, St. Vincent. With a working roster like that and yearly Grammy nods for his production accolades, it's not surprising he would become known as such a studio workhorse. With how much this has become his career focus, one has to wonder why he's still coming through with a steady stream of Bleachers albums, this one over here being his fourth. Is it just to continue having a place to release these nostalgic metropolitan pop anthems that dabble in profound levels of Springsteen worship? I mean, clearly there's a personal hunger and drive there. Jack isn't just putting out Bleachers albums for money, which is why I'm perplexed as to why it's not translating into a better album. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think Jack is a super talented guy, and every Bleachers album so far has been good for at least a couple of bangers and great standout singles. I mean, How Dare You Want More and Stop Making This Hurt are two of my favorite tracks of the decade so far. But I often find the deep cuts on his albums lacking, and I think that's especially the case for this new one over here. And the additional kicker is that I wasn't even that crazy about the singles on this one to begin with. I mean, Modern Girl is a pretty fun standout, with lots of silly, cheeky lyrics and some Billy Joel-esque vocals over some E Street band saxes and rhythm guitars. It's wild, it's rowdy, it's chock full of personality, but on the rest of the LP, in some respects, it kind of feels like Jack is holding back or shrouding his feelings and the ideas he has musically on this record a bit too much. The presentation of this record, I think, just comes across as meek in a way, with so many songs washed out in effects and layers that actually make it difficult to get to their core. And when I actually did dig down to the center of a lot of these tracks, I found them to be kind of underdeveloped too. Take the track Alma Mater, for example, featuring Lana Del Rey. The mushy vocal layers that Jack puts onto this track, which I think involves some vocoder, I can't fully tell. That's just how mushy and ill-defined the vocals are. He's so frickin' heavy-handed with the vocal manipulations on this track. And it doesn't make his singing more of a focal point in the mix. It doesn't lend itself to any kind of clarity or emotional potency for that matter. It just makes his vocals sound like muck and difficult to decipher and annoying to listen to for 3 minutes. I mean, Lana does provide a bit of counterpoint there, and there is a bit of a bridge spot where Jack's vocals are presented in a more bare fashion, and those are certainly breaths of relief. But even these moments aren't enough to save the entire track. And look, this song is not alone in the track list in terms of being overcooked with effects and kind of underdeveloped on the songwriting side. There's Me Before You, which at its core has a lovely sentiment to it. It's about how people can kind of change you and change the course of your life. But the soft layers of synthesizers, guitar, and psychedelic saxes, combined with the fact that there isn't much of a rhythmic backbone to it all, it doesn't really leave me with much to hang on to materially. The track doesn't come to much of a climax either. The song We Are Going to Know Each Other Forever is similarly impressionistic in terms of the instrumentation and direction just being vague all around, but there's a much worse vocal performance laid into this one. Meanwhile, despite tracks like Jesus Is Dead having a bit more of a groove, more clarity, as well as bolder lyrics remembering a hipster-era New York, this track is similarly very one-dimensional, with a very humble chorus that does nothing to inject excitement into the track. One of the few songs on this thing that feels like a properly written tune with well-defined verses, choruses, real structure to it has to be Tiny Moves, but yet again on this track, Jack's abuse of vocal effects combined with these really minuscule synths and string parts making up the backbone of the song. The whole thing sounds just really skeletal. Feels like something he did on the recent 1975 album, but was pulled off much better there. I think there's some potential potential on the songwriting side with the track Call Me After Midnight too, but even this track is dressed up sonically in a way that makes it more grating of a listen than it needs to be. Continuing on, we have the track Hey Joe, where vocoder kind of ruins the overall vibe once again, plus the whole song is really too short to amount to much. There's something more to be desired on the track Woke Up Today too. The lovesick poetry in Jack's lyrics is great, but the basic unchanging chords and lack of resolution and progression across the track leaves it just feeling like it's building up tension and layers for nothing. Which is a shame, because when you read into what Jack is saying on these tracks, it seems like there are a lot of heartfelt emotions fueling his writing process here, like the endearing, complimentary descriptions of his partner on the song Isimo, which are lovely, objectively, but musically speaking, the whole song sounds like if you took the music bed soundtracking a scene from an 80s rom-com, one where the two main characters realize they're in love, and you turned that into a big pumped-up dream sequence soaked in cathedral reverb, but never install a point in the song where it becomes anything more than a dream. And I guess that's my issue with this album overall, because obviously Jack was dealing in some very real and intense feelings of nostalgia, love, infatuation too. The romantic energy on this LP is off the charts. In that respect, this may be the most thematic and focused Bleachers album yet, but by that same token, musically and sonically, this might also be the most vague Bleachers album so far, as the layers and respective parts of the songs of the album overall kind of melt into each other, creating this ill-defined mess that in the end sort of feels like less than the sum of its parts, which is why I'm feeling a strong 4 to a light 5 on this project. Tran, Zishin, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Bleachers, forever.